Crypto is legal but not regulated. Crypto today is not categorized in India in any particular category. Right? So it is called asset, but it's not a security. So it's not.
So it's in a limbo.
It's in limbo. And based on this categorization, different laws applies to this category. Crypto is not illegal to buy, sell in India. It is legal by default, but it is not regulated.
So if something is legal but not regulated, it's risky.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's going to happen
Yes.
when the regulation comes. We'll start with crypto as a whole, right?
Sure.
It's gone through its headwinds, tailwinds, up and down. If you had to explain the history of crypto, in a few sentences, how would you sort of just help someone who's coming new into this understand?
I'll explain you from my point of view, and probably many of you could relate to that as well, being students. First, let me give a brief about myself so that you get to know me a bit before I
That everyone's
start.
done your research.
Achha, okay.
That you don't have to worry.
So
that much I can trust them.
So, born and brought up in Meerut, which is a small town near Delhi. Did my schooling there. Middle class family, whatever struggles every middle class family goes through, went through. Money was obviously a very key factor that everyone relates to on those struggles, and that's why I always wanted to create something, make wealth easier, make money equal for all, which is helping people discover the right assets, learn about them, invest better, and do better in life. Right? Did my computer science grad from NSIT Delhi, joined Amazon, Microsoft, and many other companies before I started CoinSwitch in 2017. Now, to get to the journey of crypto, let's start with the Bitcoin white paper. I think happened in 2009 after the crash in the market. Why did the crash happen? Because of a lot of greed, right? Money was just getting created on the fly. There was no controls over it. Money gets printed, it gets devalued. So to tackle all that, a digital money was created, which could be equivalent to the gold standard we had years and years ago, right? That you couldn't just print money, you couldn't just get money or multiply money because it's sitting somewhere in your database, right? It has to have real value. And can somebody in the internet age verify that or not, right? And that's how crypto journey really began, by solving the problem of double spent in online space, by solving it through blockchain.
What is double spent?
Double spent is basically, so if I have say 100 XYZ digital coin, right? I can send you and Venkat sir the same thing, right?
Double,
And
triple, could be anything.
It could be anything, right? So the problem used to be called double spend. There's Byzantine generals problem. I'll not go into all of that. But those were unsolved problems for over years, 40, 50 years. Those were mathematically unsolved problems, which were solved in the Bitcoin white paper for the very first time by creating something called blockchain. Any transaction that you do need to be part of the block. 6 blocks, or you can say ledgers, like Bari Khata. If you remember old movies, you probably don't, but like if point out that if you can just write it on a piece of ledger, and if 6 pages of that ledger are filled, then you can say, oh, the first transaction that happened to it is permanent, cannot be reversed, right? And that's how the problem of double spend was solved. So then this technology picked up, right? And after the crash, financial crash, people had less belief in the fiat ecosystem. They wanted something digitally verifiable, and that's where Bitcoin started its journey and kind of picked up.
So crypto starts with Bitcoin.
Yes.
Sure.
Over time, first it solved the problem of money, because that was the major problem due to the financial crash top of mind. But then people realized that, oh, why can't I build ecosystems where different people can launch their coins, like an AWS for launching your own projects, which are blockchain verifiable, right? So that's where Ethereum came into picture, which became not the money equivalent or the gold equivalent of Bitcoin, but became like the AWS, Google Cloud version of the ecosystem. And after that, you can see the boom happening. Now, any single one of you can find a use case where you actually need blockchain. Say you want, your students would go to various different countries, do jobs there. And at that country, your manager asks, oh, did you even graduate from this college? And say your degree is available on blockchain for anyone in the world to verify. Your LinkedIn profiles are, proof that you actually graduated from XYZ, and the proof lies on the blockchain. So all those shady scams where, people, just take identity of different people, try to scam them on WhatsApp and things like that, goes away simply, right? So these are the use cases that can now be built on Ethereum without worrying about building blockchain yourself. But Ethereum give you a ready-made platform where you can simply write your use case and launch it. As simple as launching a website on Amazon, you can write a simple smart contract and launch it on Ethereum and build your use cases, right? So probably that answers how do you launch your crypto. You should have a use case, only then you should launch a crypto and decide whether crypto is needed, or it couldn't just be a smart contract solving for duplicity and using blockchain in the right manner, right? So that's how the crypto industry evolved. Obviously, there are a lot of things happening in this space, ICOs, IEOs, now point system. I'll rather not go into all of that and focus on the technology part, which we believe could be really revolutionary if solved on the right use cases. Today, a lot of fluff happens, a lot of fad, which kind of mimic the use case of a Web 2 world, which is like not decentralized, and try to put it on blockchain and just say, oh, because it's blockchain, it has more value. Those use cases, to be honest, I don't believe in. If blockchain can produce real value, like I talked about, say, identification, certifications, verification, and things like that, then this industry would evolve to the next level.
So you mentioned a use case, which is the degree use case, right? That your degree can be verified.
Yes.
But my degree, and I'm going to play devil's advocate
Sure.
since I have you on the stage.
Sure.
My degree can also be verified on my college's website.
Yes.
Right. So why does a digital ledger or a blockchain-based digital ledger do a better job than, let's say, my website?
So how many colleges exist in India?
47,000.
How many colleges exist in the world?
Probably 1 million.
For a company to build a centralized system, to be able to link up all of them, search your name through all of it and find where you actually, where your degree belongs to, where it comes from, would be a very hard case to solve.
But even for blockchain, colleges will have to subscribe to that blockchain, right?
So that's a one time. So every college subscribe to that blockchain. And it's not just about certificates. It could be about awards. It could be about mark sheets. So it's the pipeline of data that is building up, and that data doesn't have to be public. It can always go through university to verify. University is still in control of that data, but now people know that that data is unmodifiable. If, say, a small university, I'm not saying it happens here, but like you pay money and you just get into your database, oh, this student graduated from here in this year. You can't say whether it's true or false, right? But if every record is on blockchain, it is verifiable by anyone out there. So that's the value that it brings in.
Got it. So you're saying that it takes away the trust part of it, right?
Yes.
So it could be that a university itself is rogue, and a university itself is changing the data of students after they graduate, which on a blockchain-based certification system, they won't be able to.
They won't be able to. So even that links to identity as well, right?
But what if, let's say, well, let's say I am a student and genuinely, and it happens all the time, that a wrong mark sheet gets uploaded. Right? In fact, when I was in college, when I was in school and I was applying to college, my school sent my grades as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whether they were supposed to say 95, 96, 95, right? So that can be fixed, but with blockchain.
So I think this is a misnomer that data cannot be changed. What we are saying is a record. So if a university published a wrong data, that would always be a permanent record. But a university, the way smart contract is written, can override that and say, oh, this was a mistake and this is the right transaction. And somebody outside can verify that university did make a mistake. For how many students they made a mistake, they can see all those changes, all these audit logs lies on the blockchain. So you can't simply say that, oh, I made a mistake and just changed it. You have to prove that you changed it, and it's for everyone out there to see that you have changed.
So it becomes very transparent in that sense. And so explain me one more thing. We spoke about money, right? And there were a lot of questions around money. Now, if I launch a new currency, am I not creating money out of thin air? And doesn't that eventually then lead to inflation in the larger economy?
No, absolutely right. And that's why, it started as a currency, right? Cryptocurrency. Why it started as a cryptocurrency? Because the problem that it was solving was the financial crash. Can we create a currency which is universally accepted and can bring back the gold standard in the digital age, right? Now the tokens that are getting released are not currencies, right? In India, we call them, virtual digital assets, right? It's like, a company doing an IPO. It's like, oh, this university use case exists, and I am inviting few community members to be part of this ecosystem. Whoever is this part of this ecosystem earns through this token, and this token someday would have value because there would be enough usage. So think of this. Let's extend this example of certification, right? Say universities, because they're part of this ecosystem, get incentivized to be part of this ecosystem. Every time they push a record in, they get, say, a token X to themselves. You're looking for a job, say, in McKinsey, and McKinsey wants to verify whether you actually graduated from ABC. Then they check on the common database. Now they have to pay some amount in the form of this crypto, because these universities are part of this ecosystem. On verification, now they receive money directly from McKinsey to themselves, right? So every verification is powered through a channel which you would have given to a centralized company to verify. Now it is decentralized, and value is going to people directly rather than any third party which is controlling the entire ecosystem. So that's where the value comes in. So it's not that everyone can create their own currency and run a different bunch of things. The idea is, how do we create an incentivized mechanism like AWS credits.
It's a reward mechanism.
It's a reward mechanism. AWS credits you earn because you did something, and now you can use it for.
Awesome.
It's an ecosystem that you're building. It's not replacing money in any single way.
Digital assets, correct. But what about the pure play currencies?
Sure.
Right. So Bitcoin was a pure play currency. There was no other use case than as exchange of value.
Yes. So currencies will also make sense for few countries, right? For India, may not, right? India has a very stable currency for years, backed by RBI and the government. So, and a good stable government which is running the country very smoothly. But that might not be the case in the likes of, say, Venezuela, many other countries. And many countries actually peg their currency to US dollar because they don't, so instead of US dollar, that could be Bitcoin. We have seen few countries adopt Bitcoin as a legal tender as well. So it makes sense for few countries. It also makes sense for interoperability across countries. If countries want to trade with each other, they can someday decide to do it on, I'm not saying Bitcoin, but maybe a common
USDC or
whatever, right? It's a common way, rails for everyone to deal with.
No, but the question still remains that there's a world without Bitcoin and there's a world with Bitcoin. World without Bitcoin had a GDP of whatever, 100 trillion.
Sure.
Right? And the world with Bitcoin now suddenly has a GDP of 102 trillion. Let's say, just assuming.
Sure.
So that extra 2 trillion, there was no innovation that happened. There was no work that was done. There was no exchange that happened that led to that extra 2 trillion. So does that mean that that extra 2 trillion is essentially just adding to inflation?
So the assumption here is incorrect. There is no work done to add those 2 trillion. So whenever a block is mined, there are countless of computers solving mathematical problems. They're converting basically electrical energy into that value. And that 2 trillion denotes that value itself, right? So it's not, that it doesn't have any value. The value is derived from doing these computations, creating a blockchain and maintaining these records. That's value. The value is derived.
So that's true for Bitcoin.
Yes.
But there are many currencies that got created in this frenzy, which did not require this amount of work.
Absolutely. So that's what I'm trying to say, that like I would say probably 99% of the use cases that are getting created are just a copy paste of the Web2 world. Doesn't even need to exist in this ecosystem.
Just for the sake of it.
Just for the sake of it. And that's why we call it virtual digital assets, because that's what they are. They are companies trying to solve use cases, not trying to create currency. Think of it like every company in India has its own currency. It doesn't scale up that way, right?
I was telling my dad about digital currencies and these cryptos, etc. And then he said, "Oh, hum to pehle bhi karte the." I go, "What do you mean by that?" So my granddad used to run a mithai dukan, right? And in that mithai ki dukan, sometimes you would not have change.
So you'll write it on a paper.
So you will write on a piece of paper, 5 rupees change. And then because it was given on a letterhead of Lovely Sweets, you could trade that in the market. He's like, "वो तुम तब भी करते थे, token तुम तब भी बनाते थे."
उसमें problem थी double spend. I could copy it and trade it on. So that's why a digital version needs to exist, which had solved that problem. And whether that would be the only currency in the world? No, absolutely not. But that has opened the gates for a technology revolution, which now you can use for verifiable, auditable systems you can build very, very easily, which were impossible before.
So as you said, 98% use cases are not relevant or not right use cases for blockchain. 2% all right. What's your favorite use case of blockchain so far that has generally seen light of the day that is not Bitcoin or Ethereum?
I think obviously I don't want to name a crypto because then I'll probably talk about the use case rather than talking about
absolutely.
the crypto itself. So crypto by default, because it's so computationally heavy, the idea of creating these blocks and maybe at a scale of India, these will not scale up anywhere in anywhere close to it. Probably they could do about 9 to 10 transaction earlier. With block size changes, probably do about 100 transactions a second. But you guys probably are ordering more Swiggies than that on a Friday night, right? So the idea is, how do you scale it up, right? So ZK proofs came along, L2s, L1s came along, which can change the way these transactions are happening on chain. So every transaction doesn't need to happen on chain itself. It can happen on a side chain and then computationally come back to the main chain. I'll give you an example of it. So say if you go to a bank today and to apply for a loan, which many of you would have done to come here. I've heard that the fees are quite steep here. If you go to the bank and bank will ask you hundreds of details of your parents, probably their bank balance history of eternity since they were born, probably, right?
Sign on every paper.
Sign on every paper, right? So all of this data now needs to be given to the bank and with all those proofs and everything. But why that has to be given? The bank has a single rule that is this person worthy of a loan? Can he pay me back? That is what bank needs to validate, right? They don't need all the data. They just need that single information. So the entire information can be stayed private and a rule, a publicly auditable rule can be
which
run.
The bank trusts.
Which the bank trusts. And why the bank trusts? Because it is not controlled by anyone, unmodifiable, and can be audited by anyone in the world. And that is why bank trusts this. So if a network like this exists, which it exists, a lot of people are trying to solve this use case, bank can simply go and ask whether, say, Ashish has the credit worthiness to be allowed this loan, rather than disclosing the data. And people misuse this data, right? Even at small places. I'm not saying bank misuse that data, but there are a lot of intermediaries who take this data कि सर मैं आपको लोन दिला दूंगा, आप मुझे दे दो सारे डॉक्यूमेंट, फिर पता लगता है कि आपके नाम पे 5 लोन लिए हुए हैं कहीं पर, right? And these frauds happen, and these can be tackled very, very easily if the technology is used right. So there are many other use cases I can talk about.
But one more.
Yeah, sure.
एक कोई और बताओ.
अच्छा, एक कोई और बताओ. So ZK का ही extension ले लेते हैं, which is anonymity. How do you bring anonymity yet prove that something is happening correctly or not, right? Let's take example of probably Swiggy's the feature that they just launched regarding the order will get removed from your history, anonymized incognito mode.
Oh wow!
Right? So
what is the use case of that?
I don't know the use case, but
it's like I'm cheating on my wife. So.
Apparently there is, because Zomato and Swiggy both launched at the same day or within the same time period or so. Now think of it that instead of history getting removed, you're the only person who can access this as an history, and now that can be built on blockchain rather than depending on any company deleting your data. You are in control of that data rather than asking. Even if your use case says that, oh, this order shouldn't show up in my history, although I'm ordering it, a company doesn't have to provide that as a feature. You should have the by default right to say that this is my data. And I should be able to either show it to the world or not show it to the world. I shouldn't depend on a company to tell me whether this feature exists or not. So say if your, say, food ordering history or your shopping history or even the classes that you're attending today, right, can be controlled by you itself rather than by the company.
Now, these are great theoretical use cases.
These are not theoretical.
No,
people are building. Yeah.
People are building.
Yes.
But it's been a while that I have been hearing this, right? कि यार ये है use case, ये है use case.
वाले 3 सुने थे आपने?
हाँ. In some shape or form, right? I mean, Chamat का वो एक जो podcast उसमें he spoke about, right? So,
sure.
But has anything is actually in any country, whether it's Venezuela or
sure.
Are things actually being utilized, or are we still a few years away?
I think we are few years away, and few take it with a pinch of salt. Few is not this, probably this.
Okay.
I think the biggest problem that we are facing in this industry, and this my view, industry may differ, people may differ, their opinions may differ. I think because it is somehow related to money. The entire fad is about making money, trading. It's not about genuinely solving a use case and then deriving value from it. But many of the projects have become that first derive the value by just stating the problem and then not end up solving the problem, right? And they get into the loop of making their token value higher
and not the
rather than
value
solving the. And that's why I say that you don't have to release a token. Please don't release a token. Please, talk to me if you are thinking of it. And there might be genuine use cases where you have to. So in that case, please go ahead. But 99% of the cases doesn't require a token of its own, and especially not a traded token. First, prove a use case. Like I said, right? Maybe today, build a LinkedIn verifier. So any profile you put it there, it will verify whether the whatever said in the profile is right or wrong, right? Whether this person worked in Microsoft, whether this person got a degree from NSIT or not, and solve that use case. And once you solve it, there would be value, and that value will circulate around the ecosystem rather than first creating value and then trying to protect
and
the
dropping the tokens. So don't do that.
And then trying to protect the value rather than solving for the use case, right? So I think that is, I personally feel, is the biggest reason this industry is not moving that it should be. It has still remained the promise. It is not converting from promise to reality.
Yeah, the question is always which crypto should I invest in?
Yeah. Yes.
That's a wrong question. I mean, if we ask that question, then the company would answer like...
And like, I shouldn't be sitting here. I am an exchange owner. My incentive is that you trade crypto.
That was going to be my next question.
If I am the custodian of this industry, then the industry is already doomed, because I would sell you that buy this token, do this token. People should be sitting here who are creating actual use cases, solving for the people, and I should just sit on the sidelines because these use cases are exploding. Yeah. There is value coming to my platform.
It's like the Bombay Stock Exchange got created even before Reliance and Adani got created.
Yeah. Yes.
And now people are trading Adani stock without Adani actually existing or even making any money.
So once you solve a problem, go ahead, do whatever you want, list wherever you want. People will, beg you to list their token. Don't do it before. Don't just do it for the sake of creating a token and listing it and having value out of it, right? Solve the use case, value will automatically come. It's like building a startup, right? First, you solve for the product, solve for the users, then value follows, right? Similar way you should do in this industry.
I think that same Chamath podcast, he had said something very interesting, that he sees a future where, let's say, on the road there are cars. You know what I'm talking about? And one car wants to overtake the other car. And then because there's IoT, the cars are actually talking to each other. And if I want to overtake this car, my car will request this car and automatically pay a token, right? And then go ahead, and everything will happen on the blockchain.
If you have ever seen, right, like our India payments obviously is amazing, UPI and everything. But digital payments are a step beyond this. What that maybe the futuristic thing could be, maybe it'll happen in the next 20, 30 years or maybe earlier. Is that while you're using the internet, right, your wallets and everything is auto linked. Like you said, machine interacting with each other, negotiating price and everything real time. You don't have to open a payment screen, verify using OTPs and all those things, right? All those things are happening automatically in real time. And that's why the digital money ecosystem makes sense in this case, right? And hopefully we'll get there someday, but it's very far. It's not few years, it's probably like quite out there, but it will happen. And that's why we believe in this industry, right? In spite of all of this, what has been happening, why our faith hasn't, been shaken in this industry, why I'm here and talking to students to inspire them to work in this industry, is that there are some really good things about it. There are flaws in every industry, but there are some really cool things that could happen from here, which could shape on the future of not just this country, but how the entire ecosystem, the entire internet works itself. So don't give up on this space. The space is really, really interesting, but go with the right motives. Don't go with the wrong motives.
Let's do a quick show of hands. How many of you were super interested in crypto at one time? For how many of you has it dwindled a little bit? So the excitement still continues. All right, that's good. So it's not gone down. It's not gone down at all. All right. So there was this question, obviously, which is around government, right? How safe is it?
Sure.
Will ED come knocking on my door if I do this?
Sure.
All of those things. And you have had those battles, like the worst of it also.
Yes.
I mean, what should we know?
So as an entrepreneur or as a user?
Both, I think. We have all entrepreneurs here.
So I think as a user, you don't have to worry a lot. Obviously, the system is not regulated. So choose, the platforms that you use very, very wisely. Maybe, go like you would have done research on me, do the research on those platforms that you're investing in, see who the people behind, how they are storing, their cryptos, the custody of it and things like that before you choose the right platform. As long as you do that and pay your taxes on time and calculate it correctly, I don't think you need to worry about as a user. As an entrepreneur in this industry, there are a lot of different challenges, right? Somebody pointed out that it's treated as a property in US. Why not here?
Yeah.
I think the first biggest problem that we are seeing in crypto is categorization. Crypto today is not categorized in India in any particular category, right? So it is called asset, but it's not a security. So it's not.
So it's in a limbo.
It's in
nowhere.
limbo. Somebody can say it's a good. Somebody can say it's a service. Somebody can say it's a software. Somebody can say it's something. It's money or something, right? And based on this categorization, different laws applies to this category. Since you don't know where it lies, then every agency, everyone would want to just jump on this and saying, oh, according to us, this law should apply.
GST will say my GST
My
apply.
GST should apply. IT will say my tax should apply. My TDS should apply. ED will say, oh, this
Capital
is capital
gains,
gains and all, right? So that is the problem, and it has improved a lot over the years. I think we've like from 2020, from where we sit today, I think it has improved tremendously. FIU registration coming under PMLA as a reporting entity helped a lot clarify the stance and at least do the right thing by the users, as well as making sure that it's regulated, not regulated, but reported correctly to the government. I think those are the good steps happen. But obviously, taxation is too high. I think if it is categorized as an asset, then it should be treated equally to either the stock market. The TDS should go down, maybe equal to an STT form, and the capital gain should convert to long-term, short-term with loss offset, which is one of the biggest hurdle in this industry, right? So it'll happen over time. As an entrepreneur, be ready with all those unknowns in this category.
But should they start up in blockchain or in crypto right now, or would you say you wait it out 2-3 years, let the dust settle?
If somebody wants to build a robot, right, should they start today or 10 years from now?
Today.
Why?
It will take you 10 years to build your own company as well.
That is
the
one way
technology
to
to
look at
mature.
That is one way to look at it. And the other way to look at it is there is no right answer on when to start. If you find a use case worth solving, solve it, right? Before, say, Amazon, how many e-commerce companies been opened and shut down?
Many.
Amazon happened to be at the right point at the right time, but did Jeff Bezos knew that this was the right time to start? Probably not, right? Did I knew that right time to start CoinSwitch? Actually, I started in 2017, but got the success only in 2020, right? So it took me 3 years. And whether I should have started only in 2020? No. Starting 2017 told me a lot about this industry to succeed in 2020. So there's no right time, wrong time to start a company in any industry. Like it's irrespective of being the crypto and a web.
And so how should students who want to start up today and they want to explore blockchain and crypto, how should they think about validating their idea? Like, kare na kare, or where should they even generate ideas from? What are someone mentioned that they wanted to know, where can they learn more about new opportunities?
So one of the and I'll brag a bit about myself here. So one of the key things in my life while running CoinSwitch was to raise funds from Mark Anderson, because I've always Hard Things About Hard Things, Ben Horowitz, one of the best books that I've ever read about entrepreneurship. We be the first company in India for Anderson Horowitz to come in and invest, and luckily we got there. And I'm not saying this because we are Anderson Horowitz invested company, but they do amazing job in curating the right material for you guys to learn and to build, right? They have tons of material available on their website. Go, it's distributed. As a user, what you should learn. As an entrepreneur, what should learn. What are the sectors that are changing the way that they are seeing. And they were the pioneers of the internet, right? The early internet. We won't be using the internet the way it is today if they didn't do the job. So they are really, really smart folks who have
built the first browser.
Yeah, built the first browser, right? So these are the guys who had, have all of this material out there. And this industry is anyway, community driven. Join our Discord channel, learn about, say, RWAs, what is happening there, and form your own opinions. Don't, and again, you will find a lot of people who will just, for increasing the token or buying the, like, don't get into
fall
all
into
of
that
that,
trap.
right? Actually go learn. Can it really help? And in many of the cases, you'll find that actually Web3 does not help, right? Whether you want to still solve it in Web2, go ahead and solve it, right? In some of the cases, you'll figure out, oh, Web3 is the perfect solution
So
for
there was
this. And then
some company, some founder in Master Zero only, I think first or second cohort, said we want to do menus, like restaurant menus on the blockchain. Like, why? Like that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it still comes back to me.
So again, right? Exactly. So don't try to, even the AI is very new, right? A lot of people are now trying to just seek, oh, can I use, like the question was, and I'm not trying to say that it's a bad question, but don't get into these fads, right? They may come and go, but the use case that you're solving will retain. The technology will evolve. Your solutions will evolve with it. But the problem that you're solving, focus on that first, and whatever is needed to solve that problem, that should be the route. Don't say that, oh, I want to do something in AI. Okay, do that. But whether the problem require AI or not, please, make sure that that is happening. Otherwise, it's a recipe for failure, right? Because
most of the companies we see doing well in crypto and blockchain are companies that are providing services or infrastructure to other crypto and blockchain companies.
Yeah.
There are very few companies that we are seeing in crypto blockchain that have anything to do with the world outside of that realm.
Yeah.
Right? So when will that get fixed? I mean, unless that happens.
Say when the internet was just picking up, right? And I'm not too old, so I don't know the reality, but I'll tell you what I've heard and learned. A lot of service providers existed back then. A lot of people didn't know how to, launch a website. Today, all of you probably can just, in 5 minutes launch any website that you wanted to. So at that time, because the technology was so new, a lot of these website creators would exist. You would go and give them money, and they will set up everything up and make a beautiful website for your system. And how many actually bought things from these websites? Probably very, very little, right? So it's the entire, it's how any industry works. Every industry is like that, right? It's not, I'm not saying that it's just this industry. Every industry is how this is built. First, you don't know technically enough to build it yourself. So there are a lot of creators out there who will help you build this. Then more and more use cases start to come in which actually prove worth. So they become bigger than these service providers. And then more such use cases come, then these service provider reduces, because these companies then build the ecosystem on launching this faster, better. Like then AWS came along, rather than having your own servers, have it on Amazon and just forget about buying servers online. So this is the evolution. And like hopefully here it happens with the right use cases coming in the limelight. Having these service providers does not hurt anyone. It's the absence of these large use cases because of which this seems bad today, but it's actually not bad.
I think I'll move to audience question and answer. But before that, someone had a question, which is, how far are we from a crypto bank, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it only exists in some ways. It only exists, but
right?
But I think the question here is like, when does it replace a traditional bank?
So why do you want to replace a bank? I think that's the first question that we should ask. Figure out the flaws that exist in a current bank. Figure out how any technology can solve it. If Web3 can solve it, amazing. And then go and solve it. And maybe it will become big one day, big enough one day that a normal bank will not be able to compete and will die automatically, right? You can't go out and say, oh, I want to just, replace a bank, right? No, that's not the way to go about it. Find out what are the current problems in the ecosystem, solve them well enough that people actually then don't stop using a traditional bank and start using your decentralized or or maybe a mixture of decentralized and centralized bank. And if that succeeds, the other industry may automatically move to you. So
sorry, one last question. So when you meet the government,
yes,
and I'm sure you have to meet the government quite often, and I don't know how close friends are you with Mr. Sitaraman yet, but generally, like, are they warm to it, or are they like scared of you guys?
I think it's exactly like the conversation we had today. You also asked the right questions, which any general person would ask. That everyone says, "Oh, Ashish, you come here and always say that this could change the world." Show us how it has changed the world in the last, say, 5 years. Tell me the examples of these things that you're talking about that could just change. So I think it's not about just being warm; it's also curiosity. to know about this industry. If everyone is saying that, oh, this is such big industry, it's going to be a game changer, then prove it in data. Give us live examples and we will consider. So they are very open to listening, to understanding. They don't want to miss out on any industry, and especially the industry that a lot of people have put a lot of weight and hue and cry about, that this could be the next big thing in it. So they're all receptive to what we say. We as ecosystem need to do better, and like my request to all of you is to do better than us. Find a problem and solve it well enough so that probably one of the use cases from here I can go back to the government with, and probably crypto gets regulated sooner.
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
So, as you're talking about the compliances, so recently we saw that Vazirek suffered with the Lazarus hack, that was a North Korean hacker. So, do you think that the compliance really helped the users in a personal case? Because I don't find, because जितने भी funds जितने लोगों ने लगाए थे वो तो कहीं ना कहीं stuck हो गए. And how do you ensure कि आपके exchange में वो चीज नहीं हो?
Sure. So इसको दो पार्ट में बांट लेते हैं. I think first, I think what you are asking is कि how does regulation helps in preventing such things to happen, and second you're asking how these things will not impact, say, CoinSwitch, right? So let's tackle the first problem. Regulations may not prevent hacks but may reduce it based on the guidelines that they will issue. And say in some cases, even today in the world that we live in, there are so many banks out there, but there is a regulator to it. Bank also goes down because of, say, NPAs, wrong loans given and not returning that money. But say a bigger bank comes in, there are a set of regulations. Users are protected to some extent there. Maybe a wild example idea could be the taxes are getting collected on this TDS and capital gains tax. Maybe a part of it gets into the pool of insurance where it is insured and made sure that if an exchange or any platform is following those rules and regulations, can partake into that pool itself. So there are a lot of ways that it can be tackled. Whether it can be eliminated through regulations altogether, no, absolutely not. But user protection can be put at the top, that in case such incidents happens, still user feel protected, and there are guidelines on how those protections can be activated, right? Coming to CoinSwitch, obviously, my opinion obviously would be biased, so you do your own research. But as a company, we have always ensured that we use best of the best custody providers across the world, right? Custody providers comes with a cost. This industry, obviously, the volumes are not so high in India now. Things are struggling, but making sure that in spite of all that, you don't compromise on security. Security is an evolving game. Markets may go up, markets may go down, but as an exchange, your primary job is to make sure your users' money is safe and secure, right? And follow all the right practices to make sure to give them the confidence that their money is secure. So that's what we try to do. And we also try to work with various agencies, BWA, which is our Bharat Web3 Association. We are trying to formulate a list of things that every exchange should do in order to not repeat this incident in the future. So we are also framing these as frameworks and also proposing this to the government as well, as that every exchange who registers, say, with FIU or anywhere, needs to follow and adhere to these laws and regulations, right? So as platform, I can assure you that we follow the best of the best practices which are out there, follow the right standards of security, follow the best in-class custody providers to ensure that our users' money is always safe and secure.
But why did not CoinSwitch as an app switch to decentralization? Sure. Because if you if any of the exchange owners really do care about the customers, they should have relied on decentralization more than centralization, where there is no hand of government involved. But still, they're so behind this.
So custody providers need to provide keys, and that keys need to be owned by the company. If every user is responsible for their own security, I think you're talking about self-custody. Sure. So only 1% of the people who are on our platform would be able to use a self-custody wallet to store keys, how to secure those. It's like saying, oh, why should I use a bank vault? I can buy a vault and keep it in my house and be done with it. But why do people use banks? Because they don't have the right knowledge, understanding to secure the vault in their house. Some people have it, right? Some people can build on ground, steel vaults which can not be moved, and those people should use self custody, right? Absolutely. But most of the retail users don't have the knowledge to be able to do self custody. If you want to do self custody, we are anyway working on solutions to provide solutions to those users as well, and hopefully in the future you'll see those solutions coming out. But majority of our users don't know how to take that action forward.
No, I think maybe if I'll extend your question, and maybe what you were trying to ask is that you're a product of decentralization, right? Your company itself,
Sure.
right? So then your data, your customers' data, and their transactions and their tokens themselves, shouldn't they also be kept on a decentralized chain rather than, let's say, on an AWS, which you may be using?
No, these are not kept on AWS. So I think because of obviously I'm not sure how many people understand the underlying technology. So once you get a token on a blockchain, token cannot be decentralized. It's used on a decentralized platform. It's like, say I got the money from the bank, so I can only use it, if a bank says you can use it here, here, and here, right? So, or let me put a better example to it, right? How to...
It's like if I buy an apple, now I have two options that I take that apple, store it in my home, or I keep that apple in the market only where it's been everywhere. It's just
I just put it on the table itself, then anyone can come and buy and take it. Or I can keep it with the shopkeeper that, can you please
I
secure...
understand that. I understand that. But I'm saying at the end of the day, your, like, let's say if I buy tokens from CoinSwitch, right? All of that data, all of that storage.
Data can be decentralized. So I don't think we're talking about data. We're talking about the tokens, the custody.
They of course have to
be
on a blockchain.
On the blockchain, held by someone whose private keys are owned by that person. And in that case, that person is CoinSwitch. So when somebody buys and sells those tokens, the custody of those tokens need to be held by CoinSwitch. It is still not decentralized, but multi-sig. There's no single point of failure there. It is spread across multiple set of people, but within CoinSwitch ecosystem, not directly depending on the user.
Got it.
Yeah. So, who are the people that verify an entry, and how many verifications are required for an entry to pass? And can many people of the same organization become the verifiers and pass a wrong entry?
So I'm assuming that I'll take this question as a context of Bitcoin, because every chain could be different. So I'll just first talk about Bitcoin, and just to dumb it down so that I don't know what level we are speaking. So
I did not understand that question.
So first let me repeat the question. So what he's probably asking is, how does a transaction get verified? How many people have to say, this transaction is correct for it to be verified? And can those people come together and lie that, although it's a wrong transaction, but we'll just let it pass because we get something out of it as well, right? I'm assuming that's the question.
And do they get an incentive to pass the verifications?
Sure. So let me explain how the Bitcoin network works, right? So there are miners across the world. When it started, obviously there are 3-4 people probably, setting up their computers and mining. In that case, collusion could have happened like way early. When there are only 3 computers, then you need 51% of the people to agree for a transaction to go through. Today, that cost of faking a transaction is about $3 to $5 trillion just to fake one transaction. And you have to fake consecutive 6 transactions
for one to be successful.
So the cost of doing it has increased so much that it's impossible, and it has never been done.
At a Bitcoin level.
At a Bitcoin level, you can create a small chain and do it among yourself. That is possible still. At a Bitcoin scale. Why do these people not collude and do this? Because blockchain, for getting the right answer, gives them rewards. And these rewards, I think, is about 6.25 Bitcoin every block. So that is what distributed. If you get the right answer to the blockchain and it is verified by all the miners on the blockchain, you get a reward for it. And that is why people keep this network up and running. And that's why so many miners across the world exist who can't, 51% of them to collude is almost impossible. It's actually impossible to get.
But in a smaller chain or in a private chain or in a...
So that's why Ethereum exists. right? So because of those complexities is why Ethereum was born. Because every one of us cannot create our own chains, because to get to this level of security requires a lot of time, effort, and obviously energy across the world. And that's why Ethereum exists, which can now, you don't have to worry about who is proving and is the person verifying this transaction, is that person doing something wrong in itself, because Ethereum ensures that the underlying security is taken care by them, and you simply write your use case knowing that this would have the same level of security as the underlying Ethereum blockchain itself.
Yeah, right.
So even though NFTs were solving a problem which was verifying digital assets,
that was in art, games, and even in some physical products. Why did it fail? Like, was it not good enough of a solution? What was the reason?
I think it again goes back down to money, right? Like we as CoinSwitch, and I'm not saying this as to shill CoinSwitch, but we never believed in those use cases, and we never launched an NFT marketplace. We never entertained the idea as well. I've gone back, like my interviews dating back years would tell you that. The reason is not that NFT is not a good innovation. NFT is a very good innovation. And the certificate thing that I talked about, hopefully if that gets implemented one day, those would be NFTs as well, so that these are unique, identifiable, and provable to anyone out there. Even your warranty cards could convert into NFTs, and digitally you don't have to keep a copy of the bill secured for years and years. It is on chain, and nobody can tamper with it, and you can go to any service center and prove it that you own it, and this is the warranty card for it, right? So why didn't pick up, according to me, and there could be many other use cases, many other fundamentally things wrong with it, is that it again became all about money, all about value,
Punting.
and rather than solving the actual underlying use case, right? It became owning an ape became a status symbol, rather than saying, yo, what is it actually doing? Maybe in smaller circles, maybe in an art circle, they might still make sense, right? As a retail user, we will never own a Van Gogh, right? So for us, being participating in that ecosystem didn't make sense at all. Maybe it made sense for a smaller community to have it and to continue using it, but as a larger mass adoption, that wasn't the use case to solve for.
So that means it was a good solution, but because of the hype around it and the consumers behind it, the greed spoiled it.
So no solution is good or bad until it is linked to the problem it is trying to solve. I would not say the solution was bad or good. I am saying the problem that people started to solve was not the actual problem, but some other thing altogether.
Speculation,
rather than solving the actual problem. If one company would have come out and maybe put, say, even warranty cards on chain, probably that would still have a lot of value out there, right? And this is the problem that I hope every one of us, at least I faces. I've already lost the house we rent. I think we have lost all the warranty cards the owner gave us for the ACs.
Yeah.
So, and I think he's after us for that. But like, you can't keep that, right? And having it online just helps it and makes it much easier.
I think a product registry,
Yeah.
appliance
Yeah.
registry is
Yeah.
a great use
Yes.
case of blockchain.
Yes.
Have you
I
heard of
think
any projects?
Yes, a lot of projects are doing it, and it's also for supply chain, right? So in supply chain, you don't know where your parts are coming from.
Yeah.
So a lot of companies have encountered in supply chain, the biggest value drop is that fake parts get part of the ecosystem. Say you're buying an apple from Kashmir, you think it's from Kashmir, but it's actually not, right? Linking physical to digital is still hard because it's just a sticker. You move it from one and put it on another. So that's probably a wrong example to take, but I just wanted to make an analogy on where it could be really helpful. On digital goods, this could be really helpful to making sure where each one of these things are coming from. Why does it have value, right? And not fake products just coming online and selling.
Just to follow up on that.
Correct.
Do you think because of NFT and blockchain and everybody wants to own their own data, the larger companies are trying are letting blockchain not succeed because that will reduce data as a commodity? Like data as a commodity will die.
Shadyantra.
I don't think so. I think there is no set of people who are controlling the world is what I believe.
I don't mean that.
I'm just saying that way. I personally feel that if there is a use case good enough, well enough, some of these companies will participate to solve it because they have more to gain from the success of it. putting it down, like Kodak example probably fits in here. Not letting digital cameras succeed actually killed the company ultimately, right? So I don't think people are intentionally doing it. Some people may think otherwise, and maybe there's some companies, maybe their intention is that, but it can't be the worldwide, consensus. If the right use case comes, this would succeed. I don't think people are worried about. They'll figure out the next thing to monetize. I don't think that.
So you mentioned a lot of use cases for blockchain. Still, one of the underlying problems remains the blockchain trilemma.
Sorry.
The blockchain trilemma.
What is the blockchain trilemma?
So basically, there's the three aspects of a blockchain: scalability, security, and decentralization.
Sure.
All of these things, one need to be compromised.
Sure.
So how do you think that can be solved?
Again, depending on use case to use case, right? Where you think decentralized is must. Obviously, you can't compromise that. So the idea is the more decentralized you go, the more you give up on scalability, because the more hard work the blockchain has to do to make sure that there's no fraud, right? So it can't just approve transactions every single second. It has to wait and make sure there's no fraud happening there, right? So again, based on use case to use case, rather than being generic about it, once you try to solve a use case, you'll figure out what are the key things that I'm looking for. Am I looking for speed? Am I looking for accuracy? Am I looking for the underlying decentralization? And you'll probably find the answer. And there are many solutions coming in, which are like L1s, L2s, which are solving a large part of it, that you don't even have to worry so much about like choosing 2 out of 3. And over time, hopefully these get addressed as well.
So what do you particularly think about meme coins?
I don't like that.
Why?
Did you expect any other answer?
Do you think they have a better future than NFTs?
No.
Why is that?
Don't buy them, please.
Sell all if you have any.
What about the Discord groups, the Discord chats that sell and create an
So
meme coin?
that's why. Ultimately, you as a user has to decide. Me as a user, I will not buy it, although I hold it because I have to test our platform. So that's why I hold every coin slightly, like $100, $200 here and there. But as a user, I don't see a use case. I don't see a future. If you ask me as a user, I will never invest my hard-earned money as an investment class into crypto. Meme coins, crypto definitely, because
There is no. I mean,
an alpha.
I think the biggest message I'm taking today is that if there is no use case, there's a productive use case at the end of it, don't go for it. If it's just speculation, if it's just meme
hype,
it's just hype, then there is run away.
But I also think that it carries a sense of emotion in it and a sense of community. So I guess more people will come in it, and it's more volatile, but also it carries a sense of community.
Again, people can find value in anything, right? What I'm particularly trying to say is that since it's an asset class, just because someone has a community doesn't mean they have value. Community needs to move forward in a direction, solving for something. If that community exists, solving for something, I'm all for it. And that's where I believe the value is derived from.
This is also entertainment. It's community around entertainment.
Yes.
Right? And that is okay as well.
Yes.
But then enough people have to find that entertaining.
Yes.
Again, they're not solving a
Productive
scalable use
problem.
case.
Yeah.
Yes. So some people may believe it, and some people may like that as fun and do it as fun. I'm not saying that, if you want to buy a Dogecoin SHIB, you go ahead and buy it, right? But not as an investment. If you're looking
because you're part of the community, then
that's
fine.
why you want to buy it, you go ahead and buy it. No, nobody's saying no to that, right? But if you're advising someone that this could be a good investment for you, probably that's not the right, and then you have to look underlying, because you should, like how you invest in a stock, right? You look at underlying fundamentals. This is how you should look at crypto as well, from an investment point of view. From experimentation, understanding, all those things are fine, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to experiment.
So we all know that Ethereum is struggling right now. And if I'm not wrong, a while back, they launched their new ETFs.
Mm-hmm.
And just because of that, it's been really underperforming. Why do you think that is?
So price speculation and things like that, to be honest, I don't care enough.
They mainly actually focused on the ETFs part.
Yeah.
Since they launched that, it's been really underperforming.
It's again supply and demand, right? So a lot of people found that, Bitcoin ETFs is something that they want to invest in. They want to diversify through Bitcoin. People think that ETF may not be that diversification. So I'm not too worried whether the Ethereum ETF succeeds or not. Some people may find it value in it and may come and invest in it. I personally see Ethereum as a good project because I see that everyone should not build their blockchain. and utilize, and they could be the AWS of the ecosystem. I could be wrong as well. Obviously, the future has to tell. But like price movements may go here and there, but I think as a piece of software, as a piece of even community and what they are building, I personally feel that it still has a good chance of being the top ones.
So we're gonna pause the questions on crypto and blockchain now. I think we've had a good 1 hour discussion. I also want to talk a little bit about you,
Sure.
right, and about your company and about your journey
Sure.
as an entrepreneur. So sometimes, do you feel that you could have started up in a different industry? Do you get remorse or regret ever? How do you like, when tough times are there, which happened in any company's time? How do you sort of talk to yourself?
I think so. Let's see why I started a company or where I come from, right? And then we will see that why it happens or doesn't happen, right? So I come from a small middle class family, struggled with money all throughout our life. I wouldn't be sitting here if somebody didn't pay my school fee or college fee. And a lot of our financial decisions would be that how would we pay this at the end of the month and things like that. And in those times, I think it was very hard growing up, because you would know the value of money. You would know that, oh, you have some savings, but are those, say, beating inflations or growing at the pace that they should be going? There were no opportunities for my father's mother to learn and do that well enough, right? And I feel that that situation hasn't changed much. Millions of people, millions of kids, parents are still struggling with that reality of making sure that their money is growing. They do 9 to 9 jobs. They don't have enough time to be their own financial advisors, learn enough about finance to be able to manage their money so well that, say, the Berkshire Hathaways of the world is doing, right? But can a platform be there which can help them in that journey and be like a friend, create a helping hand in making sure that they eases the journey throughout, right? So my entire existence is to solve that problem, is what I personally believe. We got into crypto because we believe that that was the most underserved asset class, and we believe that this is the new technology which is building up, and a lot of people can gain this technology and invest in this technology and actually create alpha in their portfolio. We have now launched our stockbroking arm as well, which is called Lemonn. So the idea is always to be a well-tech company, solving for the likes of these millions of users who are struggling and don't know what are the right decisions to take in their financial well-being, right? And we are targeting very young audience. Maybe a lot of you are our target audience as well, who are just getting interacted to this ecosystem. A lot of apps, a lot of jargons exist in these ecosystems, which make it hard, which make it like, if you say invest wrongly, you'll feel so bad that you don't even go and touch it again, right? That's not the environment that we want to create in. We want to create a fun learning environment through both these apps, CoinSwitch and Lemonn, that you should be able to become financially savvy. You will make good decisions, bad decisions. Can we help you more of good decisions and less of bad decisions? And even if you make bad decisions, can you learn from that so that you improve over time, right? That's the journey that we are on. And obviously, there are lots and lots and ups and downs every single day. But the idea is that if I end up solving, so I'm a big believer in this quote from Steve Jobs, making a dent in the universe. And I believe that this is the dent that I want to create. Either I solve it or I die trying. I'm okay either ways. And if I solve it, I know that I've solved it for millions of people who I can relate to, my struggles could relate to. And if I can solve this for them, I've done a good job in this world.
I mean, you mentioned about A16Z and Andreessen Horowitz, which is a premier venture capital firm. Interacting with them and interacting with all the other firms, what separates them out? I've always wondered. I've never gotten the chance to pitch to them.
I think the kind of clarity they bring to the table, right? I've always been a founder who's very, at least I think I'm down to earth and speak what logically makes sense. I don't know how to create castles in the sky. I know how data would lead me to solving a big problem, where I am today, and what I need to do to be able to get there, right? Obviously, there are some ifs and buts around it, but I think that is the kind of clarity that they come back as a VC as well, right? They know what are the right data points which indicate that will you be able to solve this well enough or not. Their theses are very, very clean, simple, founder friendly, which you'll not find in a lot of VCs out there. One thing which is very differentiated about Anderson Horowitz is they have feet on ground. Most of our security was advised by them. They wrote code for us. I never believed a venture capitalist, fund could actually employ people who would help these companies
At that level.
to build and to actually solve for those users, right? So I think that's the differentiation that they have created for themselves, and I don't think anyone has ever come close to them, right? And obviously, I'm a fan, so probably I'm, saying too much good things about them, but they really deserve it. And what they've done to the entire industry over the years, not from just investing, but actually building those technologies themselves, I think they deserve it.
Any questions, guys, beyond blockchain? Yeah.
So I remember when I first heard about crypto just before COVID, it was catching the air, and there was a massive inflation in the price of graphic cards. I really wanted to dive into why it was happening, why it shook the computer market, and secondly, is there a marketplace for graphic and process based products designed exclusively for mining?
Sure. So very good, very good question. I think so. Like the problem that I talked about, right? When you mine a block, there is a mathematical problem thrown by the blockchain, which these miners have to solve. Now, these problems are mathematical. So obviously, GPU performs better than your CPU. So earlier, all the mining were happening on CPU. People realizes, oh, what if we use GPU? I can mine faster, earn better rewards from the blockchain. And then there come ASICs. ASICs are, designed for solving this particular mathematical problem much, much better alone. GPUs can be used for gaming, for many others. They're generic in their processing, right? But these ASICs are specific to the blockchain problem that they're trying to solve, and could be chain dependent as well, right? So ASICs is the market that picked up after that when PayPal came into it, and there's definitely a market for it. Even ZK Rollups, we have recently invested in a company which is building the same ASICs for ZK Rollups. So I hope that answers.
So the ASICs, what is the difference between, like, what was the upgrade in the ASICs over a graphic card which made it more viable?
So because every mathematical problem requires the chip to be arranged in a way to solve that specific problem. GPU solves for graphics very well, which is mathematical computation, in general mathematical computation. Now, a Bitcoin problem is specific. Only this, this mathematical equation is what you need to solve for. So then people can optimize their chips to only solve for those mathematical problems. So that's why ASICs got.
Like a calculator chip is different from a computer chip.
Yeah.
So earlier when crypto was coming, I heard something that crypto is not legalized, but it is regularized. So you mentioned today that it is not regulated. So I just wanted a clarity over this, how it works.
I think what you might have heard is crypto is legal but not regulated.
Yeah, might be. Yeah.
Right. So that is the same status today as well. Crypto is not illegal to buy, sell in India. It is legal by default, but it is not regulated. There is no regulator out there which dictates the terms on, what a platform should do, how a user protection are done, and things like that. Although in bits and pieces, it has come. Like just say advertising guidelines have come from SeriesC, KYC guidelines have come from certain, now FIU registration, PML registration. So there are some kinds of guidelines which has come in, but still a regulator is yet to come in this space.
So if something is legal but not regulated, it's risky.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's going to happen when the regulation comes.
Regarding that part only, if it is not like regulated, okay, I am sure like for CoinSwitch also you would be having a company which would be in other jurisdiction. Because it is not
necessary. So we have an Indian company.
Obviously you are having, but again, how the fund flow can be done? If I want to open a crypto company, if it is not regulated in India, how can I?
To open a company, you don't need regulation. So say, I'll take a very simple example. Many of you would have taken cabs, ordered online on Flipkarts and Amazon. Those segments are still not regulated, right? So always innovation will come first and then the regulations can come, right? First an industry has to born, then somebody will come to regulate it, right? So crypto as an ecosystem has evolved and regulations are now catching up to those. So slowly you are seeing different agencies are taking a view and creating those guidelines. But still, it's called a regulated industry when there is licensing and a proper regulator. That is still yet to happen in India.
You can still build a company.
You can still build a company.
You can build a company and do illegal things also.
Yeah.
Was that taxation part to be done in India or?
India only. Everything is India. You don't have to worry about setting up outside. You set up a company in India. Normal,
Life would be easier if you set it up.
Yeah. So fund it in India. All the activities happen in India. You pay taxes in India, and everything is.
Why are so many companies in Dubai?
I think the ecosystem, again, like I mentioned, regulations, right? They are bit ahead, not just taxation, in regulation. They are bit ahead. So they have a licensing regime where you can get the license much easily. Plus, it's not just about being easy, but also clarity. So the problem that I talked about, that there are many agencies which treat crypto differently because it's not regulated. People don't face that problem there because it's regulated, so it's defined. If you're running a crypto exchange, A, B, C are the things that you need to do to be able to do this. So it's very clear and clear cut. So people go there, set up a company and do that. But in India, if you're say running an exchange, every department can take a different view of what you are doing. So that's where it is a bit complicated. And that's where regulation helps. And a lot of companies setting up in Dubai because the regulations are much more advanced than what we have here.
So my question was like, Bitcoin is so expensive. It's because of the supply of the Bitcoin. But like you said, once miners solves a mathematical problem, they get a reward of 6.25 Bitcoins. How does that work? Even if they're so less in supply, how are miners able to, mine new Bitcoin every single day?
So the beauty about Bitcoin was that the supply was always limited the moment it was launched. Every 4 year or 10,000 block, the rewards get halved. So it's an exponential curve, that asymptotic curve. So it'll never, it'll release only 22 million Bitcoins or 21 million Bitcoins at the end of the cycle, right? So the supply is limited mathematically by the code of blockchain itself. And it reduces the reward every 4 years to maintain that. And
So
that's why
we
it has
will not
value.
reach
It can't be
22 million for a long time.
22 million for a long time. And it can't be unlimited. It can't go beyond 22 million.
So this code which you're talking about, it was written since the Bitcoin was started,
Yes,
right? Like
yes.
every single 4 years, it will just get
Yes.
exponentially lower.
Yes. Hash rate,
Harder.
but yeah, roughly every 4 years.
But how is it being regulated if there is no, authority? behind
That's the beauty of
written
it.
in the code.
It's written in the code.
But still, like even if there are some, malfunctions in the block, if let's say in the future there are some malfunctions in the blockchain technology of the Bitcoin, or maybe let's say a counter question to that,
Fair question.
if I win a lottery and I want to buy more Bitcoins, so from whom am I buying the Bitcoins? Is it from the miners or like who?
So to answer your first question, changing of code of blockchain also goes through consensus. So you can't just go and just change it. So that's not going to happen. The entire community, the entire ecosystem need to come together to be able to change it. One change happened when we were increasing the block size, right? So that took like few months, years to get to that. But yeah, so that happened. But changing is not so easy. It has to go through consensus. Second, when you're buying Bitcoin, where are you buying it from? Ultimately, these miners generate Bitcoin. That's the only way to generate Bitcoin. So that is only where the Bitcoins can come from. Now, these will go to exchanges because they would have, they can't pay in Bitcoins in many places. So they would convert it into USD and pay their bills, electricity bills and things like that. So they will go to exchanges as a seller. Now, say you want to buy Bitcoin, you will come as a buyer. And exchanges like CoinSwitch plays a role in connecting buyers and sellers together. Once you hold Bitcoin, because you have bought it from a miner, now you can also be a seller. You can go on the other side. So that's how the suppliers buyer ecosystem work.
It's very similar to stock market. I mean,
Very
this is
similar
always
to
think
stock
of stock market and
So I was working on something. It's like
Google AdSense, but in 3D for AR and VR. So I wanted to know from you if AR and VR still have as the future, because Apple Vision Pro was critical.
So like I would go back to fundamentals, which is saying if you are solving a problem which requires AR VR, then it doesn't matter whether AR VR are picking up or not. If your solution is if you're solving the right problem, and for that you require AR VR, then that's it. Like the AR VR doesn't need to pick for your solution or your problem to work out, right? So ultimately, it's the underlying problem that you're solving. How big is the space? How big is the problem? The bigger the market. So the hierarchy of starting a company that I know of is market, team, and then product. If the market is not big enough, no matter how good you are, how good your product is, you will fail. Once the market is sorted, that is big enough, enough opportunity for you to grow, then comes your team. Because ultimately products may come and change, because you may find a problem today, you go to a client and realize, oh, this is not the problem, something else is the problem. So a team who could navigate these challenges are the second pillar in being successful, and third obviously is the product.
Right. On that note, I know there are lots of other questions, but we'll pause. He has a flight to catch, which I don't want him to miss. But thank you so much for spending this time with us. Guys,